Hi guys, my name is Kretz and today I'm going to tell you about the first ever serious camera that I've ever held in my hands. And by serious I mean the real body with a nice grip, which is comfortable, with a big battery, with the camera, the memory stick, memory card, and of course the sensor size. I'm sorry, I personally consider serious only from APS-C up. So, and obviously my first camera could never possibly be full frame or even medium format, so obviously it was APS-C, just like many guys start with that. And so I consider this camera quite serious, and this is what is called CANON T2i or CANON 550D as it's called in some other regions of the planet. That was really my first camera that I ever hold in my hands. Later I'll tell you the story of how I got that and how I received it now, 10 years since that. By the way, we are shooting with this camera right now, so we'll see how about the video quality from this camera. Yeah, 550D is shooting me right now with the 24mm 2.8 pancake lens. Well, that's a nice kit. But when I first met that camera, 550D or T2i, with the real kit lens, the 18-55, I was really amazed with the picture quality, with the resolution, and of course with the depth of field, because at those days, at around 2014, no phones, or maybe they just started to have that portrait mode with the fake bokeh. They were not so capable, not so powerful as these days, so it was rare. And it was really looking fake, and point and shoots with the really small sensor sizes of course did not give such a nice picture, not professional. But this one, even this camera, even with 18-55, I was really amazed how I could pull focus and make the back and foregrounds out of focus. So I took this camera seriously. I've been using it for maybe about a couple of years. Of course, then I switched and went up to better cameras, more professional cameras. Then of course I switched to full frame and up to mirrorless cameras these days. So I went the whole way from the beginner level APS-C camera to probably semi-professional cameras. But I've reviewed professional cameras, just like big real Canon brick bodies like 1D Mark IV and 1DX and stuff. So now 10 years since I've had my first serious camera, and I have a lot of experience, I have a lot of knowledge. I'm even curious myself how I would look at this camera and how would I review or re-review comparing to how I saw it 10 years back. So let's dive deep into this camera. I'll tell you all about it. And it's actually nice weather outside. It's fall, so nice colors, nice leaves and plants. It's very colorful outside and it's really warm. So why don't we just go out, talk about this camera, I'll show you the camera, and of course we'll take a lot of test pictures. So let's walk out. And yeah, of course, then we'll get back and I'll show you what's inside of the camera. We'll take a look at its menu, and we'll get into the additional firmware, which is Magic Lantern. Very interesting stuff. So we'll take a look at outside the camera and inside. And of course, we'll talk about many functions that actually this camera has due to its native firmware and the additional Magic Lantern firmware. So stay tuned, and you'll have a lot of information today. So here we are, as I told you, nice sunny weather. It's actually the second half of September, and sometimes it's quite cold this time of year, but now it's really hot. Even I could say it's hot in the sun, but it's cool in the shadow. So anyway, here I am walking with this little baby here, and what I could tell you about that is firstly, of course, I'm not shooting with it right now, as you see. I'm going to take pictures with it, but for videos now I'm using my Canon EOS R camera, which is full frame, which has a 16-35 2.8 lens on it, so it's our classic full frame vlogging setup. And first of all, I think we're going to proceed with my history of this camera, how I get a hold of it, how I first met it 10 years ago, and how I used it briefly, and then how the hell did it came back to me 10 years since that. And what I think of it, then we'll talk about the body and the functions and all this stuff. So, oh, shadow. let's continue in some other place. So, how did it all actually started? And I would say that it actually started with me having a girlfriend. Yeah, everything connected with women, always. But anyway, it's really true. I had a girlfriend who had this camera. Well, not this particular one, not this piece, not this item, but the same model, the 550D. And she was not a photographer, actually. She just really liked traveling, and she wanted high quality pictures for her travels, for her trips, from her trips. So she photographed a lot, but it was not professional. She used a lot of automatic settings and stuff. But she was a journalist, and she used to work on TV, so she actually knew how to pull focus in video. That is a nice skill, by the way. So she knew that. And why I'm telling you that, of course, I'm not grabbing camera from my girlfriend without a cause. The thing is that in 2014 I actually started my own channel. Well, I had a channel long before that, but I decided to shoot videos on a constant basis for YouTube, and I needed something to shoot with. So I used my mobile phone at those times, my smartphone, but the quality was not good enough, of course, and it was not always convenient using phone and camera at the same time. So in late 2014 I actually purchased a Nikon point-and-shoot camera for myself. It was small, it was convenient, it had a flip-out screen, it even had a Wi-Fi. And I had no idea about sensor sizes, small, big, full-frame APS-C. I had no idea absolutely whatsoever. I just knew that smartphone is not so convenient even to hold in your hand, and the sound was not good enough. And I'm actually being a sound engineer for over 20 years right now, so I knew a lot about sound, and I wanted better sound. And Nikon, although it was a point and shoot and it didn't have a microphone input, still the sound was better than from my smartphone. But anyway, I had a girlfriend with the 550D, with this camera, and she helped me with my shoots from time to time. And she proposed me to, you know, asked if I would like to try to shoot with her real camera, because it shoots video, it shoots full HD video. I'll tell you more about that in details, about its video capabilities. But we tried sometimes, we shoot few videos, and I was actually amazed. Even with the kit lens 18-55, I was amazed with the picture quality, with pulling focus, with having bokeh, with depth of field. And so I started asking her to help me, and then I just started to borrow her camera for my shoots and started shooting videos with her 550D. But life goes on, we separated our ways, we parted our ways about 1.5 years after that, and I had to give her the camera back to her. And I decided to purchase something for myself, and I wanted some upgrade from that. So, oh, there's a pigeon here. I have nothing for you. I'm sorry, guy. Go on. I wanted some upgrade, so I purchased 600D, so T2i for myself, and use it for some time, but it's a different story. My first real camera was this, T2i for 550D, and how it came back to me so many years later. Actually now, about a year ago, I started having a girl, a student for photography. I started teaching her photography, teaching her using. This is actually, long story short, actually, a few months back, actually it's a totally different story again. I received a 60D camera. It's a really nice camera, a nice upgrade from this one, but it's from the same year, 2010, as this one. But this is a line model, and 60D, well, we call it semi-professional, semi-professional, and 5D amateur, with amateur. Well, 60D. At those times, it was quite advanced camera, and I got it. It was be a really nice, and so I took her 550D with this, and her because she already had some other lenses to use it with. So, you need 17 to 85 to 200, which changed for 550, 70 to 85, because I decided to upgrade review this years later and then sell this as it is. So that's the story. Now let's take a closer look into the camera itself.
Well, first of all, obviously the body. Body is nothing special, actually. It's quite good, as all Canon products are. It's not bad at all, but it has its flaws. Of course, it's rather cheaply made. It's made out of plastic. Nothing metallic here, as far as I know, but it's okay. It's usable. You can use it. And all Canon products are actually quite reliable, no matter the line. Of course, it's a cheap line, but still, it's quite a nice body. But of course, if you use the higher grade line, like 2-digit, 70D, 60, 70, 80, 90D, and even better, 70, and the full frame 6Ds, they are all better than this. Well, actually, the only body that is worse than this is the 4-digits line, like 1000D, 2000D and stuff. But there's just one serious flaw. For its price, the body is fine, but the real flaw of the cheap cameras is, of course, the rubber pieces. These flaps, this cover, this port cover, and these dummy battery rubber port cover, and the grip cover, the rubber of the grip itself. It's with time, it actually falls off, or it's just falling to pieces. But luckily, when I got this camera, I decided to upgrade it. I decided to bring it in order. So I purchased and I went to service, and the guy repaired it all. So I've just changed these rubber pieces here, there, and the grip itself. He glued it better than it was. So actually, if you want to know what are the flaws of this body, well, actually, mostly these rubber covers or flaps that fall off, or fall apart even. So, but all in all, the body is quite nice, and as you see, I have a battery grip here, and it's made out of the same, it's original battery grip, the Canon battery grip, and it has actually the same materials. It's made out of the same materials as the basic body, so it's quite nice setup. It's very convenient and comfortable, but I'll tell you about the battery grip separately. It doesn't have weather sealing, of course. It doesn't have, as the Canon says, precise assembly or something like that, and it doesn't have a weather sealing, but Canon products are so reliable that they can really stand bad weather. And I shot with 550D, with 600D, with 200Ds, who are officially not weather sealed, but I shot with them in the rain, in the snow, in cold weather, in hot summer. They all survived it. Of course, you should not abuse it too much, but they really can stand some kind of a beating. Canon products are really, really good. Now, since we've touched the subject of battery grip, let's talk briefly about that. Now, I mean briefly because I already have a separate video which is called You Are Holding Your Camera Wrong, and let me explain why and how is right. Something like that. Find that video on my channel, where I actually describe that despite the fact that many people call it battery grip because it can actually hold up to 2 batteries simultaneously. To me, it's first of all the comfort grip, or maybe the ergonomics grip, because it makes holding the camera so much more comfortable. And especially with these small cameras, you know, cameras like 1D series or contemporary R3 or R1, we're still waiting for that to come out, have built-in, starting from Classic through Mark IV. They are quite big enough and comfortable, but these are really, really small bodies, you see. And if you grab it with your own hand, at least half of my middle-sized manly hand actually is left out of space here. So it's not comfortable, it's too small to hold it actually. And battery grip just comforts it all. So to me, first of all, it's the comfort of holding the camera with battery grip. It's much more, not just comfortable, but less tiring over time. So if you're shooting for a really, really long time, your hand actually gets tired because of imbalance. And with the battery grip, it's secondly, it's not comfort, but it's also a balance of not falling to the sides and not like diving and down. It's not becoming less front heavy with any lens. And of course, third, it's a vertical grip, because you can shoot vertically without any problems. You don't have to do like this. You just simply use the buttons and all the layout and the dial and the shutter button and stuff. And lastly, of course, it's the battery life. It can hold up to 2 batteries, so it's just fine. So almost for all my cameras, I purchase battery grips, because if you don't need it, if you need more space in your backpack, or you need a more compact setup, you can always unscrew it. But if you really want a comfort shoot, you better use battery grip. So I immediately purchased battery grip for this little boy. And yeah, finally, of course, it's looking so way much more professional. You see, big square camera, always looking professional. No one would ever suspect that this is actually a beginner level camera. Now, maybe one of the most important thing in any camera, of course, it's the sensor. Nothing much to say about the sensor here, because first, it's old. Second, it's APS-C, not full frame. Third, it's beginner level camera. Well, you call it whatever you want, advanced, amateur, or whatever. It's not professional, so it's not the best anyway. And third, right, and the fourth argument is that it's a Canon sensor. Canons have never been famous for dynamic range. Well, in case if you know what this is. Unlike Nikon's or Sony's, Canon's always been not good in dynamic range until recently. Modern mirrorless cameras are really good in this regards, but this is an old camera from 2010, and so the sensor is doesn't have that wide of a dynamic range. Maybe it's most of the 2 stops, I think, of preserving highlights and rising up the shadows, not getting too much noise. Maybe 1.5 or 2 stops at most. So don't expect a lot of dynamic range from this camera. You better shoot, if you can, you better shoot without much relying on post-processing your light. But it has a resolution of 18 megapixels, and it's not bad at all. What I tell you is that the flagship of 2012, 1DX, had 18 megapixels, just like this camera in 2010. And even until recently, the flagship camera was 1DX Mark III, and it has 20 megapixels, and R6 has 20 megapixels, and this has 18, just slightly less. Now R3 is the flagship, but it's not out yet, and it has 24, but 18 is quite good enough. You know, these days we mostly shoot for social nets, and even if you have a 4K monitor, which not many people actually have still, even 4K monitor actually requires the resolution of 8 megapixels. And if you're using the regular Full HD monitor, then it's just like 2-3 megapixels. That would be really enough for a good picture. And so if you shoot 18 megapixel, you can really crop up to 3 to 2 megapixels, and it would still look quite nice. Oh, there's nice girls coming. I think I could take a picture and then show it to you. So 18 megapixels is nice resolution, and the dynamic range, it's not the worst. I've seen worse, but it's not the best, of course. It's just normal, it's useful. Nothing so good, nothing so bad about it. Now, autofocus. It is probably one of the weakest links of this model, because it has only 9 points and only one central of them is cross type. So the cross type means that it catches contrast both vertically and horizontally, so it's useful. And the other 8 points are either horizontal or vertical, and they, in these conditions like I'm shooting right now, when it's really bright and a lot of light, they all work fine. All 9 points work okay. But in difficult conditions, in dim lighting, the central point works fine, but the other 8 I wouldn't even try to use. So they're mostly useless. So all in all, this camera basically has one focusing point, which is central. But if you know what you're doing, if you are trained, if you have experience, one is good enough. One good central point is always the best. I have a separate video why central point is always the best. And central area is even the best in mirrorless cameras. Although it can now focus in any part of the image sensor, the central part is still the best. Watch my separate video on this topic. But well, basically it has one focusing point, which is central. But if you know what you're doing, it works fine. And it's not the worst autofocusing system that I've seen. And for example, 5D Classic has 9 points with one central. 5D Mark II has 9 points with one central. And in my opinion, 5D Mark II autofocus is not as reliable as this one. Can you imagine? And even 200D OSL2 from 2017 still has 9 autofocusing points with one central. And the same with SL3, so this system lived long enough. So, but this one central point actually works really, really good. And in good lighting, it's perfect, no problems with that. But even in the dim lighting, this crossed-up point, it just gets the job done. If you know what you're doing, if you trained with the focus and recompose technique, so it's when you grab your subject with this central point and then you recompose, you move the frame as you wish, so it works fine. The autofocus actually is good, but it's just with the one central focusing point. But at the same time, it can operate in servo mode, which is like tracking your subject, but you are forced to use just this one autofocusing central point. And if you want to track your subject, you really have to move with it and keep it right in front of your central autofocusing point. But it actually works quite good and quite fast. And I even managed to shoot birds in flight with this single autofocusing cross-type point in servo mode. I'm showing the picture right now. Usually we like to use a lot of focusing point in all DSLR cameras because they switch from one to another and it's easier to track the subject, especially a moving subject or a bird in flight. But even with this one central autofocusing point, I managed to do that. So if you know what you're doing, it's just fine. So, but do not expect a lot from this system. And I'm talking, of course, about shooting over the optical viewfinder, so looking into this window and shooting like this. But it has a separate autofocusing system. The one that I've told you about right now is the face detect system. It's a separate system right here below the main mirror and stuff. But you can use live view here when you press the button and the mirror is actually flipped up and the light goes through the lens directly on the sensor and the picture is shown to you on the back screen. And in that case, actually the contrast detect autofocusing system kicks in and it's so-so. I mean, the contrast detect is always more accurate. It's precise, it's accurate, but in this camera it's really, really slow. This system is pre-dual pixel. Nowadays, Canon has dual pixel, is the best system in the world, as we Canon users think. But this doesn't have dual pixel, it's just a simple contrast detect. So in regular use it is very, very slow, but it is more accurate than face detect system. But the face detect is very, very fast. So it's up to you which one to use. If you're not in a hurry, if you have a setup and nothing is moving, then contrast detect would serve you slowly but more accurate. And if you're tracking action, of course, use face detect system. And in contrast detect, in live view mode, you actually have 3 types of autofocus. The regular, when you have like a rectangular shape in your screen and you can move it around and focus in that area. And the other one is actually face detect. So the camera can detect face and it can shoot and fix the focus on your face, but it cannot track. It doesn't have servo or tracking of the face. It can only focus and fix. So your subject, your person should not ever move backwards or frontwards. So in studio conditions, or if it's a portrait, dedicated portrait shoot, it's all right. It can detect and focus on the face, but your model should not move. But in live view, it cannot track. The later cameras like 80D, 90D, they can track faces and subjects in live view, but this cannot. But there's even an additional third system, which is called quick focus, and it actually uses the mix of the two, the live view and the face detect system. It actually shows you the picture in live view with the sensor, but when you press the button halfway down, it flips the mirror back down, and
auto-focuses with the face detect system and then immediately brings the mirror up. So the focusing itself is performed with the autofocusing points, with the 9 points or with the central, whichever you choose. But you still see the picture before and after autofocus in live view. So it's just the combination of the two. And it's really useful if you need a fast autofocus but in live view. You can use that. So it's up to you which one to use, but the face detect system over the optical viewfinder is quite nice. It's fast and it works well, but don't expect much of it, and you really need to train yourself to operate it. And the thing is that, of course, the autofocus speed depends not only on the autofocusing system in the camera, but of course it depends on the lens. There are a lot of different motors in lenses, and one are slower, one are faster, so beware which lens, which motor you're using. And of course the fastest in Canon world are USM or nano USM motors, and they are really fast, and they are no slower than any contemporary lens plus body combination. But if you're using micro motors or STM motors, they might be really much slower. So think not only about the autofocusing speed in camera itself, but also what the motor delivers for it. And talking about lenses, what types is this camera ready to take? Well, there are native dedicated lenses, EFS models. The bayonet is EFS, so like this one here, EFS native Canon lenses. But the EFS bayonet is ready to take EF full frame lenses. So all the range of Canon EF full frame lenses this camera can accept. So these are two types. But the native EFS range is not so fast. The fastest it has is actually 2.8. So we have 24, 2.8 pancake, we have 17 to 55 standard fast zoom lens, 2.8. We have macro lens, 60mm 2.8, and I can't think of anything else. If you remember anything, write down in comments below. But there are third-party lenses that are faster than that. And for example, Sigma 30, as far as I remember, Sigma 30mm 1.4 cropped lens, and for example, Tokina cropped sensor wide-angle zoom lenses like 11 to 16 or 11 to 20, 2.8, because native Canon wide-angle zooms are actually not fast, they're quite dark, but Tokina gives you that. And of course the legendary Sigma 18 to 35 f1.8, a dedicated EFS crop sensor lens. It's big, it's heavy, it's expensive, but it perfectly fits this camera. 18 to 35 1.8. So the range is quite huge, and especially if you would like to use full frame lenses here, you can do that, and there are a lot of them, but they are of course more expensive and they give totally different picture than on a full frame. But anyway, it takes EFS lenses and third-party lenses. What it doesn't take is EFM lenses, the previous crop sensor mirrorless system by Canon. EFM lenses, they wouldn't fit here. And of course contemporary RF lenses, both cropped and full frame, they would not fit because it's a different bayonet. Here's the bayonet is EFS, which takes EF. It doesn't take EFM, it doesn't take RF, but the overall range of lenses available for this camera is really huge. So make up your mind, pick one. It has a normal hot shoe with all the necessary contacts, so it's going to work perfectly with any native or maybe even third-party flash devices. So it has separate menu in the camera, which we'll look into later when we're back home, and it has settings there, and the shutter speed, the sync speed with the flash is 1/200th of a second. It's not the worst, but it's not the best. Say 2-digit series like 80D, 90D has 1/250th of a second. But even my 6D Mark II, which I used for a long time, it's full frame camera, it's way more expensive than this one. It has only 1/80th of a second. This says 1/200th. So you can easily work with flashes with this camera, no problem. It has all the automatics, ETTL exposed through the lens, automatic system works perfectly fine. But as all the crop sensor cameras, it has a built-in flash.
there's a button here which if you press it pops up, and you can use the internal flash. It's not so popular, you know, it's not so useful, but it's there if you need it, and it works, and it's okay. So you can use you can use internal flash, unlike the full frame bodies which don't have it, and you can use any external flash, and that's good. Well, now let's talk about the burst rate, and it's really not much talking about it here, because it's something around 3 frames a second, and it doesn't even matter if it's 2 or 4, 3, it's not much, and it's not enough. For real action, for sports, for wildlife, it's not enough at all, but it's quite enough for, say, shooting portraits. If you want to make sure that your model doesn't sink, you can shoot 3 frames a second, and it would be enough even to not to miss the open eyes. So if the eyes were closed, then you take another shot in a row, and you make sure that the eyes of your model are open. But what's maybe even more important is that it only has the buffer of 4 frames. Oh man, just 4 frames. So if it's 3 frames a second, you can imagine that it's just about 1 second or 1.5 seconds of shoot, and then it's done. Then you have to wait until the buffer clears itself. So the buffer is just 4 pictures, and again, it's enough for portraits, but it's not enough, not even near enough for action, for wildlife, and for sports. There's a plane above me. Let me shoot it and show it to you. But on the other side, this has a very interesting thing, is the exposure compensation range. And it's actually 5 stops, plus and minus 5 stops exposure compensation. I just remember my 5D Mark II, which is 2 years older than this, but is way more classy than that. That's made of metal. It's $3,500 when it came out. It was, and it's a full frame camera, and this is like a beginner level camera. It has 5 stops of exposure compensation, and 5D Mark II only had 2. Just 2 stops of exposure compensation. They're just ridiculous. This has 5, and that's a nice feature. One more nice thing about this camera is that it has the speaker on the rear, right here. And I tell you, this is really important, because you not only listen to the beep sound, which is confirms your focus when you shoot, and this beep confirms it right close to your ear, this way. But of course you your sound when you shot video and you play back the video, and so the sound flows right straight into your face. Why is it important? Because some cameras actually have speaker on top here, so the sound flows upwards, not towards you. And some cameras even have it here on the side, which is totally inconvenient. Like on my previous 6D Mark II, the speaker was on this side. And if you really wanted to comfortably listen to the sound, you need to flip out the screen here, and so this way you would be watching it on the screen and the sound would flow into your face. But here it's made properly, so the speaker is on the rear, and this is nice. And another unique feature that is rarely in Canon cameras, I believe there are with, but not many of them definitely, is the proximity sensor. So it is these 2 small rectangles right below the eye cup. These 2, they actually feel when you close up with the camera, and they turn off the LCD screen. And that's important, again, with 2 reasons. First, if you're in a dim light, if you're shooting in the dark and you don't want this screen to light straight into your face, when you start shooting, it's turned off due to this proximity sensor, and it's more comfortable. And second, of course, it saves up the battery life. The battery here is not so big, not so capable, so any second that you can save up is really good. And the proximity sensor helps here, so that's a nice touch. And as I'll show you later, this proximity sensor can also be used for some other, so you can reset these to use it for some other functions with the Magic Lantern firmware. And if you don't like the screen to be turned off, you can turn this function off. If you go to the menu, you can switch it to regular using, so the proximity sensor would not work, and it will not turn off the screen, just as you like. And finally, I think we'll talk about the rear LCD, which is really good. It has one little flaw maybe. As with many older cameras, it's kind of like buried inside. There's a glass and over a glass, and so it's somewhere below, and in the bright sunlight there are some reflections and stuff, so the screen itself is under the glass down below there, closer to the camera body. But besides that, it's a very good screen. It has nice resolution of 1 megapixel approximately. It is still probably the most popular resolution. Most cameras, and especially in old DSLRs, modern cameras have a little bit more resolution, but it was kind of like a standard, even for 5D Mark III or for 80D, it was still the same resolution. And the resolution is one thing and the size is the other, and the size is also standard 3-inch. It is still the standard for, say, RP, R8, R6. I believe R6 Mark II still has a 3 inches display, but with higher resolution. So it's a really nice size for this resolution. And maybe even more important than that is, of course, that it represents true colors. You can actually believe your monitor. What I mean, I had 5D Mark II and I still have 5D Mark III, and their screens actually have some of the bluish tint, and they show you not how your resulting picture actually looks like when you see it on a good screen, on your monitor, on your smartphone or on TV. The screens of the cameras have bluish tint. This has nice true-to-life colors, so you can really trust your screen when you see the colors that you see on this screen are true to life, and you will not mess up when you transfer your pictures to your, any of the other devices. So it's not always like that with Canons, as I just described to you. But this screen, nice resolution, nice size, and of course the most important thing, nice colors. Well, I think that would be all for the street shoot. The rest about the camera, and there's a lot more to talk about it. We'll talk, so to say, in the studio conditions, because we're getting closer to sunset, and that is the perfect time for shoots, for taking photos. But it's not perfect for shooting video because it's getting colder and not suitable. So I'll see you later.
So here we are back indoors, and let's continue talking about this camera. And in order to do that, I need to show you what camera is showing me, and that's why you see this rectangular shape here. This is what actually the back screen shows you when you're shooting over a viewfinder. If you want to go live view, you press this button over here, and of course it will show us the live view in a few seconds. That's what's going on right here. But let's start with that. I would actually praise the ergonomics of this camera quite a lot, because although it's rather beginner level camera, but it's old and it's not crippled. It's actually not crippled. You see we have a Canon cripple hammer right here, actually. That's what it is. But this camera is not crippled in this regards, because the higher grade cameras like 70D, 80D, 90D, 60D of course, and 6D, 7D, 5D series, they all have a lot of buttons on top of the camera and additional screen here. But this doesn't have it. It's a small body, but it has a lot of buttons on the back side. I'll show you it to you in a separate picture. But it has a D-pad, so-called D-pad, with the 4 arrows up, down, left, right, and a set button in the middle, and exposure compensation button, cue button, playback, and trash bin. Of course, menu and display buttons as well, and exposure lock and autofocusing points choosing button. But what's interesting about that is it's actually these buttons, this D-pad actually reflects the thing that actually was, let me show you, that actually was right here on, this is 5D Mark III. You see there are buttons over here, and they have a lot of functions, and if in the 5D series and 7D series, each of these buttons have two functions simultaneously. So that's a lot of functions on a lot of buttons. But here, surprisingly, I did not evaluate this properly when I first got this camera, but now I realize this is really, really comfortable and important. So let's see, there's a D-pad, right? 4 arrows. If I press the arrow up, I have the choice of my white balances, you see? There are only presets and custom white balance, but you could actually use Kelvins via Magic Lantern firmware, but we'll touch that later. As of right now, this camera doesn't have adjustment of white balance in Kelvins, only automatic or just presets, but still you have it under a separate button. Now that was up, now downwards button, arrow down, that's for your picture styles. It's interesting, there are a lot of picture styles native, and I have some of my custom picture styles here uploaded as well. What's interesting is you can choose them with the press of a single button, but you cannot adjust it. You see, there's nothing else. You can just pick one and use it. And the same in live view. I can press Q button. Come on. Oh, let me switch it for a second. I can press Q button and choose picture styles here by rotating the main dial. But nothing more, just pick them up. But to actually correct them, to make some settings, you see the numbers 4000. What's that? Well, in order to adjust it, you actually have to go to the menu and adjust it right here. Picture style, then press display, and then you can adjust sharpness, contrast, saturation, and color tone. You can only do it from the menu. You cannot do it from live view or from this mode, like shooting over viewfinder. In modern cameras, you can do it whatever. There's always a button for, you can press display or info and change sharpness, contrast, tone, and what else is there? Saturation, or from anywhere. But here you should only go to the menu. Now, we're left with left and right buttons on the D-pad, and the left is choosing single shooting, serial shooting, continuous shooting, remote, timers and stuff, so it's immediately under one button here. And the arrow to the right allows you to choose the autofocus, the single or the server or even AI, which automatically decides between one shot and servo. So it's all under your buttons, under your thumb, and it's very comfortable. And I would say it's even no worse than in, say, 5D Mark III, because you can easily go from continuous to single shooting. You can easily, you see, I don't even need to look at the screen. I can choose my white balance and then just press AF to choose servo or single shot, and then even picture styles, everything. It's really brilliant. It's very comfortable. And of course, the exposure compensation button is right here as well. I can press it and rotate the main dial, and so change exposure compensation and stuff. So the ergonomics is actually brilliant on this camera. I'm really quite surprised now reviewing it 10 years after that. And some buttons, of course, are doubled here on the battery grip as well. So now, that's about the ergonomics. It's fantastic. And of course, the separate ISO, dedicated ISO button on top here. Here it is, here it is. And some of contemporary cameras, like my EOS R, with which we're shooting right now, doesn't have a dedicated ISO button. Yes, you can appoint ISO to some of the other buttons, but it doesn't have a dedicated ISO button, and this one has. So it's fantastic. The ergonomics is brilliant here. You can operate it very fastly. Now, let's go through the whole menu and just see if there's anything interesting, anything special comparing to other cameras, and was just ordinary. Now, I press the menu, and let's go with the first position here. Of course, it's quality and the resolution. You can choose between RAW and JPEGs and RAW plus JPEGs, but you cannot choose the RAW size, RAW resolution. Only JPEGs, you see, maximum resolution is 18, then lower quality, then lower resolution, lower quality, lower resolution, lower quality. And the whole resolution of RAW plus JPEGs, in my opinion, is the best option, or just shoot RAW and you can convert it later. But since this camera cannot convert RAW to JPEGs inside of the camera, like some of the higher grade cameras can, you better opt to RAW plus JPEGs, because if JPEGs turn out fine, you can use them right away. But if you have only RAW, you need to download it somehow, transfer it from your camera, from your card to your PC, and then process it in some software. So I always choose RAW plus JPEGs here. Now, these are all ordinary functions. I would not even go into them. I believe you understand what are they for, and if not, just leave a comment down below. I'll explain it to you. Any of the menu items I can explain in details, but just don't want to waste time now. We'll just pick up something particular or interesting about this camera. So these are the same as it's all the same that you can find in any modern camera. But now, peripheral illumination correction. That's correction of vignetting for the lens disadvantage, so to say. It already has it. It doesn't have correction for distortion, diffraction, and chromatic aberration, which contemporary cameras have, but it already has vignetting correction. But in order to do that, you need, of course, to connect your camera to a computer and turn on the EOS utility, native software, and then update your lens profiles to your camera. So you see, I have a pancake lens here, it shows me, and correction data available, it's all good. So the vignetting will be corrected right away in JPEG pictures. RAW files are left for your decision later in the post-production. Now, red eye reduction for internal flash, all right. And here's the flash control. It's your regular flash menu like in any other camera, except that it has the setting for built-in flash. And of course for the external flash, if you put it up here into the hot shoe. Now, next, exposure compensation. As I've already told you, it has up to 5 stops, plus or minus. And of course the bracketing up to, what it is, 2 whole stops. That's brilliant for someone doing landscapes or HDR photography, to combine those pictures and have a wide dynamic range. So that's very, very good option, up to 5 stops. And let me see, if I have this and go to minus 5 stops, then due to bracketing, you even have additional 2 stops. So it's, you see, it's actually minus 7 stops if you use bracketing. You see, if you go lower, then it's just 5 stops, a regular exposure compensation. It's fantastic. It's more than you ever need, probably. Oh, auto lighting optimizer, metering modes. It's the same like in the other camera. Custom white balance. This sucks, but it's the same still in present day cameras. White balance shift, useful thing with the weird lighting sometimes, and color space and picture style. I've already told you, you can switch between them and correct any of them, and even upload your own, like I did. 3 slots here I use for some custom profiles, and I can of course change them all as well, just pressing display and using the other settings. Now, going further, does delete data. This is a thing for native software. We're not going to be diving into this. And ISO, the native ISOs here, automatic ISOs, are from 100 to 6400, but you can actually expand it to 12,800. I'll show you how to do it later. But here you can choose the maximum that you want. If you don't want to go high and protect yourself from a lot of noise, then probably stick with maybe 800 at the top. For crop sensor cam, for old crop sensor camera, 800 is good enough. You probably don't want to go higher than that. But if there's no other choice and you have to go higher, well, of course, choose 6400, but you're gonna get a lot of noise. Well, anyway, let's go further. Playback menu, the blue one. Protect images from deleting them in camera from the cards. You can protect them. Rotate, erase, print order, slideshow. You can rotate right in camera like this. Not very useful thing. Better use it in post, in my opinion. There is something about rotation that is really useful, and I show it to you later. Erase images. You can go and select, all images on card, or you can select separate images and delete them all, just the selected ones, useful thing. Print order, slideshow, not useful in my opinion at present day. And then histogram, using the main dial while playback, what it's going to do, and finally control over HDMI. Now currently disabled because I'm already over HDMI. So nothing fancy here, very primitive menu. What's lacking here is raw processing. It's reserved for higher grade cameras, say 60D, which came out the same year that this came out, and it has raw processing. But it doesn't have it here. And what I was disappointed finding out now, I thought it's there, but it's not, is the rating, the stars, 1 through 5 stars you can give to any of your pictures, so it's going to be much more easier picking the best ones in post. In photo mechanics software or just simply in Windows, it allows to, in Windows Explorer, it allows you to arrange pictures by the rating, and this camera doesn't allow you to give these ratings to your pictures. That's a little bit of a disappointment now, 10 years later, now that I actually evaluate this feature quite a lot, because if you're shooting hundreds of pictures, you really can easily go through them right inside of the camera and give them some stars, and then according to those stars you can pick them in post, but this camera doesn't allow that. Now, going to the general menu of the camera, power off, of course. I usually leave it in 1 minute. It's the most useful thing, because if you forget to turn off your camera, it will turn off automatically in 1 minute. But if not, it will just drain out your battery. And you don't want to do that. You don't want to find out that your camera is drained when you have to go to shoot. Now I just turn it off, so that it doesn't turn off while I'm showing it to you. Now that's what I meant about the rotating. That's what's useful. What is that? It is how the pictures are shown to you on the back screen of your camera in the playback mode. And the first option on camera and the computer means that all the vertical pictures that you take are actually rotated in camera, so you see them. Let me show it to you. Let's find some vertical pictures up here. So here's the vertical picture, but you see it occupies smaller space, so it's a vertical picture shown to you on a horizontal screen. So of course you can zoom it in, right, you can zoom, but still it's a small picture. And if you go to the menu and choose some other option, like showing it, like rotating it only on the PC, because, well, or Mac, whatever, on the computer, then of course you want vertical pictures on the big screen to be vertical. You don't want them lie on their side, right? But you can choose to show it to you horizontal on the screen of your camera, like this. Let me show it here, you see. So the screen is bigger when it's vertical if you are looking at the vertical picture. So of course you see it lying on the side, but if it was the camera screen, of course you'll be seeing, watching it in a full scale on a vertical screen rotated like this. That's what I mean. And this option means that, like we've just seen, it will be on a full screen on your camera, but it will be rotated properly vertical on the computer. And if you turn it off, then the picture will stay like lying on its side anywhere, both on computer and on the screen here. But why is it useful? It is very, very, very much useful for using with the battery grip in a portrait mode. Because if you're shooting primarily vertical like this, of course you don't want your picture to be lying on this side if it's vertical and it's rotated, so it's kind of like counterintuitive. But here, if you are shooting vertical and the playback button is here right under your thumb and you press it, and then you see it, well, imagine, right? This is the screen, so if I rotate it, then the picture will be vertical here. So if you're shooting vertical, then the picture will be shown vertical to you here. So it's really comfortable and useful. And more than that, the battery grip has the same buttons that regular body, which are plus and minus, which are zoom in and zoom out. So I can do that right from my battery grip. And of course using the D-pad, which is not far from thumb as well, so I can inspect my picture here. So in my opinion, if you're shooting vertical, then this second option is the most useful, because it will show you vertical on your screen, but it will rotate to proper vertical even on horizontal screen on your computer. Well, that's about it. Long story, but in my opinion it's very useful. Formatting. It could seem like nothing fancy here, but there actually is. As I've told you, Magic Lantern firmware is installed here in this camera, and I'll show it to you in more details later. But here, what about formatting? The Magic Lantern is installed into camera, on the memory card. But if you format the camera, you'll delete the Magic Lantern file. So how will it work? Well, here it is. You can choose by pressing Q button, you see here. Format card, remove ML. ML is Magic Lantern, so you'll clear the card altogether. But Q again, format the card, keep ML. So the pictures will be deleted, but the Magic Lantern will stay. So don't forget, of course, to keep the Magic Lantern. And low-level format to clear your card completely. Now, file numbering, it's the same option as in many other cameras, LCD auto off, and this is about the proximity sensor. Actually, I cannot show it to you right now because we are over HDMI, it doesn't work. But if it's off, just nothing will happen. This screen that you see here will be here, and if you shoot over the optical viewfinder, it will stay here. But if you make it enable, then, as I've told you, the proximity sensor will feel that you are closing into the camera, and the screen will turn off just like this right here. It will be black. So here's when you turn it on, the proximity sensor on and off. Now, screen color, very interesting option in my opinion, and I can't even remember any other cameras that have these options. I believe there are some. If you remember or if you know, please write down in comments which cameras have these options too. But I don't see it in many contemporary cameras. That is really the screen color, as you see here, the main one, how it looks. But you can make this look like this, like white, black, brown or dark plus green. Why is it useful? Well, this is the regular, and in my opinion it saves up most of the battery because the screen is mostly dark and only these small digits are white, so draining your battery. But if you go this way, it may be much more useful in a bright sunlight or in any other bright situation, because with this one, you see, oh, I'm sorry, I pressed the wrong button, but anyway, you see, it can reflect. I believe you see that it can reflect. And if you have this layout, black screen with white figures, it can really reflect and spoil your vision. But if you switch to this white layout, I'm not sure it's showing it. With this layout and the white reflections on the screen, these black figures will be seen much more clearly with such a contrast, you know. This screen is much more useful in a bright light situation. Now, the setting number 3, I have no idea why would you use that. If you have an idea, just please leave a comment down below. But the last one I totally understand, and that is the darkest one, the black screen and the dim green light. This is very much useful in the dark, in the night, in total darkness. Why? Because the screen is gonna be the most dimmed, so it's not conspicuous if you're shooting, you know, I don't know, maybe nature somewhere or just night streets and you don't want to be noticed by anyone or by wild animals or whatever. But you'll still see your figures clearly because this, although dark but still rather contrasty figures, these dark green figures will be perfectly visible in total darkness, but it will not light up your face, because if you shoot any other option, well, I'm not talking about this, of course it's going to be very bright, but even this option, these white figures will light up your face quite a lot, and this dark green will not. It's the best options for shooting in total darkness, like in the night, or indoors, if you're shooting some live show, some concert, or in theater. This is the best option, and it's great that it has such options, in my opinion, and I don't see many cameras having it. Well, let's go further. LCD brightness, we don't see it right now because we are over HDMI, but you can choose the brightness level of your choice. Daytime, language, PAL system. PAL is for 25 or 50 frames per second. We'll go into that later. and NTSC is for 24, 30 and 60 frames per second, depending on what region of the planet you live in. Now, sensor cleaning, just ordinary function, manually. It will flip the mirror up, so you have access to the sensor. You can clean it now, and you can enable or disable auto cleaning, which shakes your sensor and tries to shake off some dust particles when you turn off and turn on your camera. Nice option. And live view functions. Enable or disable live view altogether. Grid display. You see there is no grid if I go to live view like this. All right. Let's try autofocus. This is how slow the contrast autofocus is, you see. But let's turn on some grid, your regular 3x3. The law, for the law, the 2/3 law. Yeah, really good thing. And there's another grid, I believe, with the central point. Yeah. Here the cross must be right in the center. Yes, if you want the precise center of the frame, you can have it with this grid. Oh, come on. So useful thing for adjusting your horizon or creating some composition of your choice. Now, metering timer, regular thing, and of course, autofocusing method, but you can actually change it from live view itself. Here, press the Q button, and here at the bottom of the screen, here's your oh, I'm sorry. I need to dial in the live view. So there's your rectangular shape, and you can focus on anything. And you can use your D-pad to move this thing around. And as I've told you, about 80% of the screen is available. You see, not the whole screen, but about 80% of the screen. And what's more important, the exposure metering happens in this rectangular. So if it's dark here, it's gonna expose in this area. So this is really important and useful. But what are the other methods? The other one is face detection. Face detection. So let me see. Yeah, it detects my face, and if I press the button, it's very, very slow, but it's precise. It's totally precise, but it's very slow. And of course, the proportions here on the screen are wrong. If you're watching it on the screen of your camera, it will be correct. But here, due to HDMI thing, it's just like squashed a little bit. But anyway, and the other option, which I've already told you about, the quick one. So here's the central focusing point, and when I press the AF button halfway down, the shutter button halfway down, it flips the mirror down, so there's blackout, there's autofocusing, and going back to live view. So it's kind of like live view, but using face detect autofocusing system, and it's very fast. You see, it's much faster than using just contrast detect like this one. Just look at this speed. Oh damn, it's so slow. Now we're done. But anyway, I've already told you about that. So that's about the live view. And what about live view options here? Oh, that's all about it. And then custom functions. Let's just finish here. It's just the firmware. You see there is a magic lantern. Clear all the settings and copyright information. You can enter your name here. Okay. Nothing interesting here. But custom functions, very important thing. Exposure level increments, 1/3 of a stop or half of a stop. A lot of old lenses have aperture controls with half stops, not 1/3 of a stop. So you can use this option for those lenses. And here's ISO expansion. With off, your top ISO will be just 6400, like you see, 120, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, and then auto. But with the expanded option, you will have 12,800, I believe. Now let me see. Let's go out of the live view, press the dedicated ISO button, and we have H. Yeah. That's it. It's a fake, actually. It's actually like 6400, but expanded not with increasing the sensitivity of the sensor, but with just software. So it should not be different from shooting 6400. and raising up your exposure by one stop on post-production. It must be just the same. But still you have such options. If you're shooting JPEGs, it's useful. If you're shooting RAW, then you can easily adjust exposure +1 on the post and it will be the same. But for JPEGs, it's useful. You can use like the simulation of 12,800. Now, oh, there's a motorbike outside. Next, flash sync speed. I've already told you up to 1/1200th of a second. You have auto, you have fixed, you have something in the middle. Now, long exposure noise reduction, the same as any other camera. High ISO, the same. Highlight, tone priority, all the same. AF assist beam firing, you can use your built-in flash. It will briefly flash to help your autofocusing system, or you can use the IR, which is infrared lights from the external flashes to help your autofocusing system. So it's all chosen right here in this option. Now, next, mirror lock-up to shoot with the flipped-up mirror. And here's quite an important thing. You can switch the functions of the shutter button and the button with the asterisk here. What it's useful for, if you choose the thing number 1, I believe, yeah, then there will be no autofocus on half press here. Yeah, no autofocus, but it will move to the asterisk button here. And thus, if you choose the AI servo, then you can just press this button and it will track continuously. If you are holding this button, it's tracking right now. And you just take the picture whenever you like by pressing the shutter button. But it will continue to track until you press the shutter button all the way down. Very useful for action, for sports, for wildlife. So you can track your subject continuously and just take the picture whenever you like. But remember that there will be no autofocus with the half press of the shutter button. In order to do that, we need to reverse it. And there are some other options that you can inspect yourself. Now, you can assign some functions to the set button. As I've told you, the D-pad, it has 4 arrows, up, down, left, right, but in the middle there is a set button, and you can also use it for image quality, flash exposure compensation, useful thing for shooting with flashes. LCD monitor turn off, go into menu with your right hand, because the menu is actually right here under your left hand, not comfortable. If you wanted to go to menu fast and quick, you can use that button to go to menu. And ISO, why would you assign ISO to set while you have ISO button, dedicated ISO button on top? I don't know. But anyway, LCD display when power on and off. Oh, that's what it is about. There's a display button here. If I press it, I turn off the display. Well, it turned off, but you see these weird colors, but there will be no these, stripes, colored stripes on the screen. It will be just black. And if I turn it on, I bring back my figures again. And these options is about what's going to happen when you turn your camera on. So if your display is on, then no matter if your display was turned off before you turn off your camera, or it was turned on, it will still be turned on when you turn on the camera. But if the previous display status, it will, preserve the status. If it was turned on, then when you turn the camera on, the screen will still remain off. And that should not scare you, because, if you use the previous display status, just be aware that if your screen was turned on and you turned off the camera, then you turn the camera back on and the screen is black, and you can get scared if it's all right with the camera. Then you'll just have to press the display button here for it to appear again. Or simply use the display on here not to get scared. Now, what next? Add image verification data. It's old Canon function, not useful. And that's all. That's all about it. So not much about custom menu, but still. And there's the last one, the green menu, which you can use for appointing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of your favorite items from the menu, bring them up here. and I've done it, and the one is grayed out here because you cannot see it in a regular menu. I've just showed it to you. There's nothing like this in this menu, but in the custom functions there is something hidden, and hidden is Wi-Fi settings. So you can use Wi-Fi card with this camera, and if you do, then this option will not be grayed out. It will be available. So I just appointed here to show it to you. So Wi-Fi is available with this camera, and you have a separate option which you can bring up here in your favorite menu. So that's about the general menu of the camera, and now we'll dive deep into the Magic Lantern, which has much more. Now I would like to stress out some weird thing that confused me, but I found out the way around it, and that is using the picture style in photo and video modes. As I've told you, let's go live view and see. If I want to choose one of my picture styles here are the native ones, then I come to my customly uploaded via EOS utility software, and it's showing me, here are my 1, 2, 3 picture styles that I have. I can choose from any of them for photography, but when I switch to video using this top dial, and I try to go through them, like you see, the same standard, portrait, landscape, neutral, faithful, monochrome, which is black and white, and then I go to user defined, it's 1, standard, 2nd and 3rd. It seems like these 3 that I uploaded just disappeared, and I cannot choose them for video, but you actually can. They are just somehow hidden. You should go to the menu, then go to picture style here. Then you see these are just standard. Where are my uploaded ones? They are hidden there below it. I press display button, and here I can choose the picture style, any of the native ones, and then I go to the one that I uploaded. There it is. Then I choose it, and then I can as well change some settings. Then I should go to the user defined to display, and then pick my customly uploaded one. All right, and then the same for number 3. Here it is, and now here are all 3 of them. Then I go back to shooting video, right, and now here they are, 1, 2, 3. By default, as simply I uploaded them, they just looked like they disappeared. Weird thing, but that's how you find them and use them on video. Now, if you don't know, I seriously doubt that you don't, although it's quite an old thing, and it actually lasted for 10 years. Well, yeah, precisely 10 years, from 2008 up to 2018. Since 2018, I believe there was no stable release of any new Magic Lantern firmware builds. Yeah, so it happened for 10 years, and it's a lot of years past that, so you might not know about that. But the thing is, Magic Lantern is a separate firmware that can be installed on your camera's memory card, and it could expand the functions range of your camera vastly, just vastly. And the older the camera, the more functions it actually adds to your native firmware. And 550D is a very good example in this regards. And if you want to know what this is, how to install it, where to get it, and stuff, then please request in comments a separate video. But now, I'll just tell you that Magic Lantern is already installed here. It's on my memory card, and as I've showed you, it can be seen here that the firmware, the native firmware is 109, and there is ML nightly 0.2. That's the Magic Lantern firmware. You can see that it's here. And in order to get to the Magic Lantern menu, we need to press the trash bin button here. And this is a totally separate menu. And what's interesting, there's an audio regulation here. But to understand that, let's just go to the video mode, because we don't need sound in photo mode. I just totally forgot. I'm sorry. We need to inspect the video mode as well, because this camera shoots video, and it's quite decent recently. You've seen the beginning of this video I shot on this camera. So here's the video mode. You see these stripes grayed out because it's 3:2 cut to 16:9, and if you go to menu, it's actually a little bit different from shooting, from photography. Well, this is the same. You see the picture, the image of the camera. So these are for shooting still photography. And this is dedicated video mode. So here's the resolution. So it already shoots the proper 1980 by 1080 at 25, 24 frames per second. This will be 30 in NTSC mode. I just happen to live in Nepal, PAL country, so it's 25 for me. And this is full HD, and in HD it can shoot up to 50 frames per second and 640 by 480, 50 frames per second. In crop mode, it's very interesting. I'll show it to you in a second. Also at 50 frames per second, so you can have twice as slow motion. If you stretch the video twice from 50 seconds to 25 frames per second, then you have naturally looking slow motion with half of the speed. But now let's go to the live view and see about the modes. Can we switch them from here? Yeah, we can switch it. And you see it only records up to 29:59, so just half an hour with 25, 24 frames per second or 50 frames per second with HD, and now 640. And now let me show it to you. Let's focus on the camera that's shooting me, and we go to the crop mode. You see, whoa, and this is actually 640 by 480, 50 frames per second with 7 times crop without picture quality loss. It's just low resolution. It's just 640 by 480, yeah, but no picture loss. It's just too dark. Let's look outside the window. Where's it's too bright, right? I need to dial the shutter speed, but you see it's a view out of my window with 7 times crop or zoom in. So this is the regular view. This is like 16 by 9, and this is 640 by 480, and this is 7 times zoom. Yes, it's low resolution, 640 by 480, but it's 7 times zoom, and the picture is just cropped part of the sensor, so it's not digitally zoomed in. It's just showing you the cropped part of the sensor, so may be useful. Low resolution, but really it's 7 times zoomed in. And with the sharp lens, with a lot of light, you can really use it. So that's about the resolutions that it supports, the video resolutions. Come on, it's a little slow. Now, AF mode, the same as in the photography. AF with the half press the shutter button, you can use autofocus. It will be slow in contrast, as I've showed you, but you can turn it on or off. And the function that shutter button and the asterisk button perform is the same as in photography. You can choose whatever you want. And remote control, you can disable or enable this. There are some remote control options for Canon natively and some of the third party as well. Exposure is just 2 options, totally manual or totally automatic. Nothing like aperture value, TV time value, no. It's either totally manual or totally automatic. Just 2 options. Grid display, the same, metering and highlight tone priorities is the same as for photography, but here's the sound recording on and off, and that's it, nothing. So you can record sound or not. There's a built-in mono microphone, and of course the microphone input 3.5 mini jack here, so you can use decent microphones, proper microphones, but you cannot adjust level here. As you see, it's just on and off. And how do you adjust the levels? It's really important, adjusting the sound recording level, and that's where Magic Lantern comes into play. Now let's look into it. Luckily, the Magic Lantern menu does not change while switching from photo to video, it's all the same. So we can stay in video mode and press the trash bin here. If you don't know what Magic Lantern is, just request in comments down below a separate video from me. I'll explain to you what's that, where to get it, how to install it. In this camera it's already installed, so I press the trash bin button. And here's the separate menu. It has a lot of stuff here. But as we're talking about video, the most useful is adjusting the volume, the recording volume. And here it is. Here's the analog gain. Well, this is just like turning the volume up or down. You don't pay attention that it's in decibels, it doesn't matter. It's just louder, and this is just quieter, whatever you choose. And you have a metering down there, so you see, I'm hitting the microphone and it's showing you levels on the bottom. Now, digital gain, it's additional gain. And by the way, there's some tips down you see in the screens like here, so you can read it as well, what it is for. But it's just like an additional gain control. Input source, you can use the internal mic or external mic, or even both of them, one going to the left channel and the other to the right, so you can record two sources simultaneously, and you can choose it here, auto, left, right, internal, external, etc. Microphone power, you see, can turn it off. Headphone monitoring, very interesting thing. You can actually monitor your camera via headphones if you use the native Canon original Canon video cable that comes with the camera, which has RCA's connectors on one side and these mini USB on the other side. It's a totally different topic, but if you have kind of an adapter from RCA to mini jack, then you can have your headphones attached to your camera and you can monitor the sound with the headphones. It doesn't have a dedicated headphone output, but you can use mini USB here and the Magic Lantern software, so you can turn headphone monitoring on and off and adjust the volume of headphone monitoring here. Now, speaker volume, it's for the speaker that I've already told you about on the rear panel, and these are just test tones. Nothing fancy, just test tone of the preferred frequency here, just like for test. Now, some exposure settings, very useful. For example, the ISO in this camera can only be adjusted with full stops, 100, 200, 480, 800 and stuff. But here with the Magic Lantern, you can usually actually go with, I believe, half a stop. So you see, 640, 400, 320, 160. It's not available with native firmware, but here with Magic Lantern it is. Let's go to auto. So you can use smaller steps for ISO adjustment. The same with the shutter speed and the aperture. Picture style is the same. You can use some additional modules. I will not go into them right now. If you need additional help with these options, just request it in the comments down below. But what's interesting, you can have expo presets with the press of a button here. Say, you can dial in some settings. Say I want to shoot with wide open, with ISO, say 200, yeah, and in aperture priority mode, right? So that's it. But then I want to dial in, say, maybe a little bit higher ISO, but darker aperture. And now, with the press of the set, oh, come on, haven't I turned it on? With the press of the set button, you can actually switch between these two presets. Well, set button, all right, or maybe display. Let me see. Or it just doesn't work over HDMI. Well, I don't want to waste your time, but you can choose between the two presets. Works best in manual. All right, I need manual now. That's what it's about. So say 1/25, 2.8, and okay. Then let me just randomly switch. And then when I press the display button, there's the previous setting, and now another setting, previous and another. You see? So I have kind of like two presets, and I can switch between them with the press of a button. And this button can be either display button or, come on, or the set button, whichever you choose. So two exposure presets, very, very comfortable for shooting some, concerts or staged activities, whether you need, come on, whether you need shallow depth of field or you want a group of people being in sharp focus. So you can choose between, you know, open aperture and close down aperture, and like with the press of one button, just switch between these two options. Dual ISO, ISO exposure override, a lot of options. I will not dive deep into them. If you need that, request in comments. Now, a lot of overlays available here. And here's your regular live view, native Canon view, right? Here it is. Oh, let's go to some of the semi-automatic options to see it all. Come on, where's auto? Here's auto. You see not much information here, just shutter speeds, aperture, exposure metering, number of pictures available, free space on the card, and ISO and battery. But if I press display, there's something additional, and oh, come on. Oh, display, this is for switching. Yes, I turned on the switching of two presets. Now I need to turn it off for it to work. Right, the previous option. Now, if I press display, there's some additional information and histogram, but if I press again with the native firmware, it will be just empty screen. But with the Magic Lantern, there's a lot of information appearing, you see, like this. Well, actually, let me briefly go much further, and the original view is like this. This is comfortable when you're shooting, so on the camera screen this will be shown properly, like something in the bottom, something on top, but over HDMI it's not so useful. So let me, well, this is what you will see while you're shooting with the camera, but now for demonstration purposes it's much more useful to switch it to bottom under 3.2. I'll show it to you later. So this, you see the screen, the image is empty and all the settings are at the bottom. This is just more comfortable. So let's proceed with that. This is the Magic Lantern screen, you see. It shows you the clock, yeah, the image mode, the picture style, the temperature of the sensor, the empty space on the card, and even 38 equivalent, you see, it's the millimeters. This is 24 millimeters for crop sensor, but for full frame it's 38. And I'll show it to you what it means. But now let's get it gradually. And a lot of overlays available. Zebras, focus peak, ghost image, histogram, waveform, vector scope, a lot of stuff. So you see these little red dots and stuff. It's just focus peaking. So you can have focus peak for 550D, like in modern cameras. Again, not diving deep into this, but a lot of overlays here available, and most of them are really professional. So like waveform and vector scope, useful to adjust for adjusting white balance to a skin tone, because it actually, let me show it to you. Here's the vector scope, and the orange button on top is actually showing you the skin tone. So you see, there's my face, and you see it shows, oh, I'm sorry, I've taken a picture of myself. You see on vector scope, this dark area going up towards the orange button, orange dot, it means there's a lot of skin tone. And so if the color is wrong, then it will be to some other side, to blue, to green, yellow, but here the skin tone is right in the frame, and so you see, let me fill the picture. Yeah, you see it's going to the skin tone. So this orange dot shows you the skin tone. So if you adjust white balance, it will help you. And these are just really professional instruments, even more for videography than for photography, but a lot of, well, if you know what this is, you'll understand. If not, it's maybe not for you right now. But anyway, zebras and focus peaking is also useful for photography. If it's, you see this zebra, because it is if it's overexposed, it shows you the zebra. And if it's properly focused, you see these red dots. So you can turn it on, you can turn it off, and there's a lot of setting under it as well. Now for videography, very important thing, bit rate. I've told you this camera can only shoot up to half an hour of video, half an hour, but it can also shoot only 4 gigabyte file, 4 gigabytes per one video file. And if you shoot with the native settings, with the native bitrate, which is around 45 megabits per second, you will reach the 4 gigabytes limits before half an hour. So your file size will be split into several files. But here you can control the bitrate, you see? This is 1.0x is default, and here you can raise your bitrate, or you can bring it down. If you bring it down to somewhere around, I don't know, maybe 0.4, it's gonna give you, as far as I remember, 16 megabits bitrate, 0.3, 12 megabits bitrate, and correspondingly the other figures. It will lower the bitrate, and thus the file, the video file will be less of a size, and thus you can really have half of an hour video in one video file within 4 gigabytes. Well, I hope you understand why that's important, so that your files are not split, your video is not split into several video files. And of course, for Full HD video, 45 megabits is really a lot. You don't actually need that. Well, for some kind of professional production, maybe, for heavy work in post. But for YouTube video, 16 megabits, even 12 megabits is plenty enough. So you can lower your bitrate, but then get the single video file within half an hour video. So this is really important. You can have gradual exposure and stuff, but what's also important to my mind, there's a lot of options. You can inspect them yourself or ask me in the comments, is movie restart. If you turn it on, then when the half an hour passes, the video stops but immediately starts recording another file. So you don't have to run to your camera and press the button again, as with the native firmware. Here, the movie restart is automatically on. You can shoot an interview for several hours, and every half an hour the video will stop and start again by itself. So movie restart, very important option. And as well, there is a movie logging for you videographers there, movie makers. It will create a text file for every video file, which will include all the settings that you have, the aperture, the shutter speed. I believe there will be everything that's connected with the video file, maybe the picture style and stuff. So for every created video file, there will be a text file with all the settings. And of course, that's very important for movie makers. To repeat the scenes, to have an idea about grading and stuff. I don't need that, but that's an important thing. And a lot of other options, including recording raw video. I haven't tried it, but this camera is quite old, it's not so powerful, so it can record several seconds of raw video. There's a lot of options. Of course, if you lower the resolution, you can choose aspect ratio and resolutions. You see, if you lower the resolution, then you have more seconds of shooting, and it all depends on your memory card speed, of course. A lot of options, will not go into that, but you can shoot a raw video even in this camera. Now, shooting a lot of options, but what are most important, maybe intervalometer. Is you can take pictures with certain intervals between them. Modern cameras have that in native firmware. This doesn't have it, but you can have it with Magic Lantern. So, say, take pictures every 10 seconds and stop after, you know, some number of pictures. Well, intervalometer is a very important thing. It was useful, it is still useful now for time lapses. You can shoot a lot of pictures within a certain time period, then compress them all to 25 frames per second, render it as a video file, and thus have a time lapse. Bulb timer, so it's a free shutter speed, so to say. So exposure duration, you can, you know, choose like several hours with that, you see. There's a lot of options, minutes, hours, seconds, just dial it in here and you'll have a free lasting exposure. LCD sensor remote, you can use your proximity sensor as a trigger button. Well, instead of the shutter button, you can, oh, I started intervalometer. I should turn it off. I'm sorry, it started taking pictures. Let's turn it off. You can use this proximity sensor like as a shutter button. So you just close in with your finger it sees it and it takes picture. So like a silent remote. Interesting. Motion detect, silent picture, like a screenshot from your screen. Well, flash tweaks, shooting preferences, a lot of options here. So many, I can't even explain it all to you. Trap focus, very interesting thing for using manual lenses or manual focusing. It's like when you see the options I've chosen, hold AF button. So I'm holding AF button. Oh, I'm sorry. Come on. I switch to manual focusing and I hold the, I'm out of focus and I hold the shutter button halfway down and then I start turning the, yeah, it caught it, it trapped it. Well, it means that when the picture is in focus, it will take the picture automatically. So you see, it's out of focus. I hold the button down and rotate the focusing ring. And I haven't pressed the shutter button all the way down. I did not do that. It just took the picture automatically. All I had to do is hold the shutter button halfway down and rotate the focusing ring. So, very nice thing for vintage manual focusing only lenses. Helps you to trap focus without autofocusing. A lot of other options here. Advanced settings of the display, as I've showed you. Like if you're using HDMI, you can have different layouts here, screen layout. Say this is the original and this is what it looks like. But for HDMI, as I've told you, this might be the best option. And there is even an option to clear overlays, like say always. And see, and thus you'll have kind of like a clean HDMI. Unfortunately, it's not full screen as you see, it has some black bars, but it will hide even native figures. You see, you don't see anything, it's just a clear display. So here, clear overlays is here. Well, so many options here, and additional review settings, like quick zoom. You know, these, let's see some pictures on my card. Yeah, that's what I've just taken. The zoom in and zoom out in Canon cameras is so slow, but Magic Lantern allows you to make it fast. So you see how fast I can zoom in and zoom out. That's thanks to Magic Lantern. And a lot of other options here. Live view zoom tweaks, you can turn it on and off 5 times, 10 times zoom. You can have auto exposure on zoom. You can increase sharpness and contrast on zoom. A lot of options here. Focus box. Well, this rectangular shape, you can hide it if you don't want to look at it, and a lot of other stuff, including power saver live view. You can dim display, you can use buttons to turn off the displays, the overlays, and stuff. So a lot of options here. This is the Magic Lantern. And even some additional modules which you should turn on manually. You see a lot of stuff here. So that's about Magic Lantern. Many options it can allow you additionally to your native firmware. So Magic Lantern is must-have in my opinion for cameras like this. And this is for cameras from 2008 to 2018. Well, the first Magic Lantern came out for 5D Mark II in 2008, and the latest builds for previous cameras were released in 2018. No reliable build or steady build or finished build was released after 2018. So modern cameras don't have it. But for a lot of old cameras, 5D, 123, 550D, and other models of the same line, a lot of them, many of them have Magic Lantern. Just proceed to Magic Lantern website and try it out for yourself. Now let's briefly talk about the lens that I received this camera with this time. And this is actually 17-85, and during this video I showed you a lot of pictures shot using this lens. Somehow it has a bad reputation. While in my opinion it's very, come on, refocus, it's very nice upgrade to your 18-55. Oh, I think. First, it has a wider focal range on both ends. 17 is noticeably wider than 18, and 85 is obviously longer than 55. Its build quality is better than on kit lenses 18 to 55. Stabilizer works really fine. Autofocus, it's USM autofocus. It's very fast. It's faster than STM, and it's faster than, of course, obviously much faster than micro motor. And it has a lens hood. I purchased it separately, so it preserves from side light, from direct light, some upwards and downwards, and of course from the drops of rain and from direct impact. It's nice. It has constant manual focusing, independently from autofocus. It has the distance scale right here, so it's all upgrade from your regular kit lens. And although it's a rather old lens, it has very smooth bokeh, in my opinion, very nice, and one of the smoothest bokehs that I've ever seen. And it's rather sharp, it's absolutely sharp in the center of the picture, even wide open. And its aperture only goes from f4 to 5.6 on longer end and f4 at wider end. But it's really sharp in the middle of the frame all the time. And it's obviously softer on the edges, but it's getting sharper when you get when you close the aperture down. And in my opinion, its only real problem is chromatic aberration. There's a lot of it on the sides of your pictures, especially on a wider angle. At 17 millimeters, it has significant chromatic aberrations on the periphery of your picture, and even closing down the aperture doesn't help it much. But you obviously can remove chromatic aberrations in post if you're editing your pictures. So its only flaw is really a lot of chromatic aberrations on the wide end and on the sides of your picture, and of course it depends on what is in your picture. If there is a lot of contrast there, then it will appear. If not, then not. So in all the other aspects, in my opinion, this lens is rather nice. It's very cheap, compact, versatile, stabilizer, autofocus is really fast, and it has everything you need, and it's much more versatile than 18 to 55, and it has no less picture quality in my opinion. So really good, very, very budget lens. I had it once, and I substituted with 15 to 85. Yes, that is a much better lens, but it's also much more expensive. So this is very cheap upgrade from 18 to 55 and very decent one. So I can recommend it if you have a very low budget. If you can go higher in money, then probably 15 to 85 would be much better choice, or obviously 17 to 55 f2.8 is better upgrade, but the cheapest and very significant upgrade from 18 to 55 is this old 17 to 85. Just make sure to get one in a good condition or put it to service. It's not going to be expensive, and it will last you and will deliver you great pictures. Well, while I was trying to connect this camera via mini USB and make it work with this EOS webcam utility, it's already evening, you know. I spent the whole day shooting this review, so it's getting darker, so now let's be brief. I couldn't do that, so I hoped this camera could work as a webcam or a camera for live streams, and previously I could do that with any Canon camera that had live view and could shoot video. You just put it to video mode, put up the live view, connect it via mini USB, and install this EOS webcam utility driver, and then it works. Like it appears just in the list of your web cameras, so you can use it in any software. And as of right now, I couldn't do that. I'll try to dig into it a little bit more and maybe keep you updated on the channel later, but as of right now, it doesn't work. Well, like officially, Canon has some cameras supported with EOS webcam utility and some not. And I think this is not in the official list. But previously I could connect any unlisted cameras as well. It's only that they had to have video and live view, and they worked, but not now. Now, let's finish. So let's sum up about this camera. What can I say? It is still good device overall, although it's almost 15 years old, it is still a good device for shooting photographs and even for shooting videos. It has nice ergonomics with this very comfortable buttons, as I've already told you. Yeah, it's not very useful for professional photography. It doesn't have modern technical specifications, not such good of a imaging sensor, not the biggest resolution, not the best in any respect, but it's still a nice camera. It's very cheap, and it's a real camera. It has big APS-C sensor. Of course, it's not full frame, not medium format, but APS-C is decent enough to have a professional grade pictures if you know what you're doing, if you can manage the camera, and if you have decent lenses. So I'm really grateful that my photography and videography history started with this camera, and then I had a chance to review it right now, 10 years after that. So it can be used for anything, for videos, for photography, for portraits. Of course, it has the brilliant Canon colors, so the white balance, the automatic white balance, it all works perfectly. It's very comfortable to hold in hand with battery grip and shooting vertical. And without battery grip, it's small. It's very good for kids, I know, you know, for children, for women with smaller hands. You can make it smaller without a battery grip. So overall, nice camera. What to say about it? Of course, it's far away from contemporary cameras, which have a lot of technologies: eye tracking, subject tracking, vehicles tracking, you know, human face tracking, animals tracking, and stuff, and clean HDMIs, and all the other technologies. But for pure photography, for such low price, this is a great camera with huge lens choices. So thanks to this camera, and thanks for you to watching this probably useless review in 2024, but still it's some kind of content. And if you like it, please leave a comment down below, press like, subscribe to the channel, and consider supporting my activity by the links and tips in the description. Paul Kretz was here with you, and I'll see you next time. Or maybe not. It's up to you.